But Archie was, I really, I feel like I just kind of fucking lucked into him. I got into the business, at a time when he was in a position of power at DC, and as you mentioned before, I mean, his reputation just absolutely precedes him, and you don't have to tell anybody who knows anything about comics who Archie is. I mean, Jesus. But I didn't start reading comics until I was 19. I never collected and in earnest at all until after I graduated from high school. But the exception to that, and I swear to Christ this is the truth, I'm not bullshitting you. When I was 12 years old, I bought a paperback book size edition of Archie's The Empire Strikes Back that he did with Al.
Mm-hmm. Al Williamson. Yep.
Yeah. And it was only because I was a fan of the movie. And I used to go to this bookstore in Charleston, South Carolina called the Book Nook. And we lived on the Air Force Base there. And it was right across the highway over the barbed wire covered fence I could see from my backyard. And I used to go over there all the time and just sort of look through the bookshelves and whatnot. And I was more into, like, special effects makeup and Fangoria and Gore Zone and all that stuff more than comics.
Cool.
But they had comics there, and I saw that, and because I was a fan of the Star Wars movies, I was like, oh, I'll have to check that out. And so I bought that paperback, and I still have it to this day. And Archie did put an inscription in there for me.
Very cool.
It still has my homeroom, my middle school homeroom number, and my name in pencil written on the inside front cover. And that year, I decided that I was going to recreate that entire book on 8.5 by 11 typing paper with ballpoint pens and markers.
Wow.
And I copied every fucking page out of that book.
That's really cool.
And we had just moved to Charleston from my dad was military, so we moved about every 12 to 18 months. And we moved right at the beginning of the summer, so I couldn't make friends in school like I normally would. So I spent the entire 3 months in my room doing that. And when we started school, I managed to talk the school and the art teacher at the school into allowing me to post pages that I had drawn from that book on the court bulletin board as you're standing in line to go into the lunchroom.
That's great.
So they're like new pages like every week when you would come in. But I mean, it was just me aping Al, total copycat shit. But
that's cool though. Come on, you're a kid. That's all right.
Well, yeah, I was 12, so
yeah.
So when I got to work for Arch, and I didn't even make the connection initially who he was when I first got the job. So I was hired, and I knew kind of who he was, with him being over at Marvel and Epic, and his history with like Vampirella and Creepy and all that kind of stuff.
You bet.
But I didn't really know about all that stuff until later. Because after I started working for him, obviously I went back and like dug through, long boxes and comic shops and like sought out his stuff and was just absolutely in awe that I was actually, talking to this guy on the phone every day, for 4.5 years. But that, I feel like I have this really cool connection with Arch because, and by the way, that's what he told us to call him. So I'm not going beyond my allowance here.
Well, you worked with him. It's cool.
But I feel like I have this really cool connection with him. My God, 20 years before I ever even met the man. Because that was literally the very, and I'm not bullshitting you, that was literally the first comic book I ever paid money for.
That's very cool.
That he wrote. And then ended up working for the guy, and he was incredible. He was like I said, he just left us alone to do our job, and not to say he wasn't involved or distant or anything, but he was smart. He knew when to step in and make comments, and when to, let James and me just kind of do what we wanted to. And I think the entire time I worked for him, I think he only raised his voice at me one time, and it was over a cover. And by the way, he was right. But I would always have to turn in. He always asked me to turn in like 2 or 3 different sketches for each cover. And this is a small aside, but when we first started the series, it was to be black and white color covers, pen and ink and color covers. But then he knew I wanted to paint. So after I turned in the cover to issue 0, which is part of the 0 Hour thing, he went back to DC and said, "Listen, Tony wants to paint covers, and I really want him to do it, so you should make it happen."
Awesome.
And so that's why there is a black and white cover in existence that never got used for issue 0, and then I ended up painting all the covers for the entire series. So, and that was a huge step for Archie to fight for that, because it was an expensive endeavor to add that onto the budget of the book at the time. But he was incredible. But the cover that he hollered at me about, I don't remember exactly which cover it was, but I'd always do 2 or 3 sketches, like I said, and turn them in, and then he would go over them and call me. Because this was before the days of email, kids, where we actually had to get on the phone and talk to our editors and interact with other human beings. God, I miss that shit. And I try to do that as much as I can nowadays, but everyone wants to just do the email thing,
I hear you, man.
Oh. But anyway, so Archie looked at these sketches, and my wife has always been sort of my touchstone, my muse to sort of go to and say, "What do you think? Here's this. Is this shit or is it good? Should I go in a different direction? Whatever." And she's always right on the money with it. And Stacy always, and I'm not kidding here, every cover I did on that entire series, from regular issue to trade paperback to poster, whatever, Stacy always picked the same goddamn sketch that Archie did, without fail. And she said, "Okay, I like number 2. That's going to be the one." I'm like, and I never agreed with her. I was always like, "No, I'm not that crazy about that one." But you always have your favorite that you put your energy into,
sure,
and then you shit 2 other ones out. And it's always one of the ones that you shit out that the editors pick.
And these are roughs, I'm assuming, right? These are
they're thumbs. And then you go on to do like a more finished prelim beyond. And well, back then anyway. Nowadays, I've been doing it long enough now to where people trust me to sort of do my thing, and I don't have to do as much prelim work.
Okay.
So he called me, and we started talking about the sketches, and he's like, I like number 2. And I'm like, man, I'm not, I'm really feeling this other one. I really dig this one. I really think that's going to be the one that's going to be strong. And we went back and forth for a few minutes, and he finally just interrupted me in mid-sentence and raised his voice and said, "We're going to go ahead with number 2." And that's the end of it. And I was so flabbergasted that I couldn't say anything to him but "Yes, sir." And I've never called that. He always told me to call him Arch. I'd never called that man sir from the first day I'd met him. Not from lack of respect or anything, but he always insisted that we call him, Arch.
Sure.
And so I just, "Yes, sir." And God, I wish I could remember what cover that was now. The story would be way better. But no, that was the only time he ever hollered at me. And I had a pretty strained relationship with my father at that time, and prior to me getting into comics. And Archie was just incredible. He was such a gentle guy, and just, you know, aside from, everybody knows his writing, and they've worked with him and whatever, but the man was just a really cool fucking human being. I mean, just a really sweet guy. I mean, I remember one of the times when I went up to New York that he had a photograph in a frame on his shelf in his office of him in some pajamas, like the old school Victorian pajamas where they look like a dress, you know?
Like a nightshirt?
Yeah, like a nightshirt with like the cap on your head and all that shit. Where you're carrying like a little candle in your hand and like
he's Scrooge
and shit.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I was like, what in the hell is that? And he told me that it was like one day where everybody was supposed to wear their pajamas to work that day. It was called PJs at Work Day, or some shit like that. And so Archie comes in that. I don't know if that's actually what he wore at home, but he got on the damn subway like that shit. Oh, I'm sure he had an overcoat or whatever.
Outstanding.
But, yeah, that was amazing. And he was a really funny guy, and you know, just really sweet dude. He really just made the job not even feel like a job. I mean, you know, I miss him. And him getting sick and the cancer finally, you know, taking him. That really took the wind out of my sails as far as being on the book is concerned, and that was really the major reason why I left Starman when I did. I just couldn't do it anymore.